Welcome to the PitchVision Academy Cricket Show, your guide for the next half an hour or so to better cricket. My name is David Hinchliffe. I look after things here, and helping me to help you are two very fine cricket coaches. The first coming from a slightly different location than normal. It's the director of cricket at Millfield School. It's Mark Garaway. Hello, Garras. Where are you?
It's very sunny and very hot Mumbai at the moment. Just had a game of 2020 cricket this morning against the Cricket Club of India at the magnificent Brabourne Stadium. I think we played against the Mumbai Indians because everybody seemed to be over the age of 25, which was fantastic, bearing in mind we're an under-15 team. So that was good. And I can confirm that I think it was Kyron Pollard got 70. I think Lassit Malinga got a couple of wickets, so they're in good nick and looking good, but we managed to perform unbelievably well against the Mumbai Indians today with a group of 13, 14, 15-year-olds.
Secondly, it's the cricket professional at Portsmouth Grammar School. It's Sam Lavery. Hello, Lavers.
Hello there, how are you?
Good. We missed you last week. We tried to get you on the show, but unfortunately it didn't quite happen, did it? So
yeah, apologies.
We had
some last-minute injuries, which took me out of action. I had another one on Saturday, again. Actually. Yeah, there was another one on Saturday, so I've spent some time in the hospital recently. It's quite good fun, though. I think it's an education, and it does remind you that in cricket we, especially in terms of the injury side of things, obviously the guys pick up a few injuries here and there, but in comparison it is very low key. So it does remind you that it's a little bit easier on the cricket side of things when it comes to the physicality and the brutality more likely than rugby.
Yeah, well, let's concentrate on cricket then for
Absolutely.
A little bit longer then, and we're going to talk about something that is often overlooked, but I think is of crucial importance in the game, and that is the single. That nudge into the leg side for one, that or maybe even a nick through third slip for one. But the single, I feel like it has more importance than one run in a game, and I wanted to get your thoughts on it. Not only on where you sort of rate the importance of a single, and if you think it's something that has a greater importance than just the one run you get from it, and also how you can improve it, and something that teams are constantly working on is finding ways to pick up more singles. So how can you go about that? So Gareth, what do you think about singles?
Well, I think they're obviously really important in certain times of games of cricket and in certain formats more important than others. So when you need a run and a half a ball for the last 10 balls, every time you get a single, the run rate goes up. So it's not particularly useful in that part of the game. But equally, when you're chasing 300 off 60 or 50 overs, then a single is really important. But also we have different contexts, don't we, where you might have a new batter come to a wicket with an existing batter and you want them to get off strike and get the existing batteries going well on strike. Well, that's an incredibly important single, isn't it? If you can get your better batter to be facing more of a strike, then that's going to be working to your advantage. And then you've got those singles at the end of an over. So there's so many different contexts for a single. I think the one that's really interesting now is the value of a single in different formats at different stages. How do you coach it? Well, I think there's a lot of different ways of coaching it. The first way, and I'll chuck this out there to start with, that I got taught how to coach it was by playing the around the clock game. So you put down the cones and you shout out a number, and you've got to hit the ball to where that number is on the clock. And it's a really good way of learning how to use different body positions, attacking the ball from different angles to get the ball into different spots.
Lavers, I always think it's the single is so important because it's one of the easiest ways to turn a dot into something else. So when you are talking about increasing the number of balls you score from over the course of a longer innings, then obviously like four is more useful than one, but turning a 0 into a 1 is a pretty simple thing to do, and then you can increase the number of balls you score from, and then obviously get more runs as a result of it. So how do you go about turning more zeros into ones?
Well, first of all, you're absolutely right that there can be more to it than just the run you get, and that can be the confidence it breeds in the batting side, the impact it can have on the morale, the impact it can have on the planning for the bowling side. So there's a lot more than just the run to it. One of the key things we focus on, or we try to focus on, and hopefully it happens more often than not, is the discussion around where the opportunities are to take the single on any given surface and against any given bowler in any given match situation, really. So if you can pre-plan to a degree where you're looking to score those opportunities and take those singles, and if your non-striker can have a really strong awareness of what's trying to be achieved, so it's not a surprise, and that's the one thing we're trying to get away from, is we don't want that call for a one to be a surprise to someone. We want both people to be expecting it. It's that age-old adage that if you both go, very rarely will you get run out. And if you're both expecting the call, or you're both looking for the opportunity because you know that if the ball's dropped into mid-wicket, or if the ball's dropped at the batsman's feet, you're both looking for the single, there's more confidence in your ability to in your likelihood of running together, and then subsequently almost certainly going to get there. So yes, you can have the technical side of it in terms of developing your skill to direct the ball in different ways, from third man all the way around the clock to fine leg, but also that communication of what you're looking for, what you're expecting, and also planning for which ones apply to the situation will not only increase the likelihood of executing the skill, but also increase the likelihood of getting down the other end and rotating it. And it can be such a morale boost for the batters, but it can have such an impact on the bowlers if 3 or 4 singles in a row that are under complete control. And I think that's where sometimes the single can have as almost as much benefit as a boundary. Is that often that single is done with complete control, whereas the boundary, maybe the bowler just feels, well, he's had a big pop at that, he's had a big drive, he's played across the line, whatever it might be. And so the bowler feels it's in the game, but sometimes you can rotate the strike with a single with a real quality control over the situation, and the bowler hasn't got a sniff, he's not in the game at all. So those singles are really vital for a lot more than just the run.
Yeah, the bowler hates it as well, doesn't he? You know, you how often do you see a bowler get frustrated and have a go at a fielder, even if it probably wasn't the fielder's fault? There's a quick single picked up somewhere, and the fielder maybe didn't quite react, you know, at John T. Rhodes' level of fielding, and the bowler gets absolutely furious because he feels like, well, I'm trying to bowl at this guy and you've given him a run. But actually, the reality is that it's clever. It's clever batting, and you've done a good job, and you've frustrated the bowler, and you've probably given yourself a better chance of doing well because the bowler's getting frustrated rather than feeling like they're in control.
Often the case, though, isn't it, that every club level bowler expects to have international level fielders supporting them.
Yeah, well, that's the way of especially fast bowlers, isn't it? You have to have a little bit of fury in you to be effective. So you can give a little bit of unreasonableness away sometimes, can't you? If you've got the red mist because you're trying to knock someone's head off.
It's hard work running in, isn't it? So they can be forgiven from time to time.
Time to wrap up this section with a bit of news, and we're talking about Cricket South Africa this week. And in a new move by Cricket South Africa, 20 PV1 PitchVision systems have been rolled out across South Africa to aid the talent identification and coaching of players across the country in South Africa. It's part of Cricket South Africa's coach education and coaching solutions partnership with PitchVision, including increased coach education, the world's most advanced training centre in Pretoria, and an online player management portal with PitchVision's ball tracking available to all talented players in South Africa. You can find out more by heading to pitchvision.com. It's time for us now to answer some questions that have been sent in to the show by listeners or readers to the PitchVision website. And how this works is we answer a couple of questions that we've picked out, and then Once we've done that, we choose a winner of the best question of the week, which is an online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. And you can send in your questions for future shows by emailing coach@pitchvision.com, or you can get us through social media, which we'll tell you about towards the end of the show. And someone who's done that this week is Yuvraz. And Yuvraz says, what is fourth stump bowling? Can you describe it to me? And when would I use it?
Well, fourth stump bowling is effectively, if you could imagine, an extra stump outside the line of off stump. So the same gap that you have between your off stump and your middle stump, have that again. It's an imaginary stump that sits outside, and in fact you can actually put a fourth stump in to practice bowling at, and I'm sure that's something that Sam does as well. So you put a fourth stump in when bowlers are bowling through for them to practice that channel. Talking of channels, the fourth stump and into the top of off stump is what Geoffrey Boycott famously calls the corridor of uncertainty, the channel of uncertainty, where a batter might find it more difficult to judge whether to leave a ball or whether to play a ball. So it's that area that you're looking to get, which breeds that little bit of uncertainty in the batter's mindset, particularly at the start of their innings, or particularly on wickets that may have gone around a little bit, nipped off the surface, or when the ball's swinging. If you can get the ball in and around that fourth stump line or the top of off stump line, then generally the best bowlers in the world, somebody like Glenn McGrath, were fantastic at hitting the top of off stump and the fourth stump line. It's something that people need to practice, and as I say, one of the ways that you can do that is to put an actual fourth stump in there and try and hit the top of that, or you can get one of these foam targets that sits on top of your off stump, which then sticks out into a fourth stump line for you to aim at as well, which is quite popular too. But it's a great line to be able to have. Important that people can go to left-handed batters into fourth stump, and also to right-handed batters into fourth stump as well.
I guess it's slightly different as well, depending on if you're a left arm bowler, a right arm bowler, and against the right hand batsman or a left hand batsman. The line is slightly different because the ball's going to need to pitch in a different pace depending on where the angle's coming from, and the swing and the movement and all the rest of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, you've got the dynamics of a cricket ball, haven't you? Particularly when we're talking about swing bowling, dynamics of a cricket ball and where they pitch. Because obviously, if the ball's going arrow straight, it's going to pitch in a slightly different place to when the ball's swinging around corners. So if you can envisage a left-arm swing bowler bowling to a right-handed batter, if the ball's going into a fourth-line stump and the ball isn't swinging at all, then you're likely to pitch that more in line with sort of middle and leg on the angle to get it into that fourth line, whereas if the ball's swinging big, you're probably going to pitch it more middle and off to get the ball going into fourth angle, or even off stump if it's absolutely hooping. You need to adapt to that, and that's why it's good to bowl with different balls. When you're doing your fourth stump practice, use one type of ball that might be swinging that bit more, and then use another type of ball that is going straight on, and see how quickly you can adjust between the two.
How much labours do you concentrate on that phrase fourth stump bowling? Is it something that comes into your terminology much, or do you sort of say, well, aim at the top of off and we'll go from there?
I wouldn't say I concentrate on saying it specifically, but it is something that pops up regularly in terms of general terminology. So whether or not it's our focal point, I think that would be a little bit dependent on what we're trying to achieve in a game, what conditions we're playing in, what the situation is, that kind of thing. But yeah, it is the sort of thing that will be referred to in conversation day in, day out, as often as off stump or middle stump. But fourth stump is just commonplace in terms of our discussions, and it does illustrate an area that is really valuable on occasions to operate. And I think it's a very simplistic way of illustrating a point of where we want the ball to go, or where we want to try and leave a ball, or where we want to attack a ball from, or whatever it might be. So yeah, it's something we do use a lot, something we talk about a lot, and it's I'm not sure where it first came about, really. I'm sure it's been around for many years, but commonplace really, and something that is there in our discussions on a daily basis.
I think one of the reasons why it came in was because outside off is quite a big sort of gap, isn't it?
Absolutely, isn't it?
Yes. So you could miss off stump by half a centimetre, yet that's still outside off, and equally outside off as a general term could be quite a long way, almost a wide and maybe even a wide. That still constitutes outside off. So it was trying to get a little bit more specific into the lines that you were asking people to bowl, and I think it's good terminology, and again, because of the way that you can practice by sticking an extra stump in there or putting a target linked to that off stump in there, I think it's really tangible for people to associate with. And also, as we went back to earlier, that decision making in line whether to leave or whether not to leave is it's a really difficult one, and how many times, and we've seen it, haven't we, the last over the winter, people leaving the ball and getting that they thought was into fourth stump, and it created some indecision and having their off stump knocked over. That does happen a fair bit, particularly with Dukes and Readers balls around the world, and even SG balls we see a little bit of that as well. So yeah, getting the ball in there, and I think probably the best bowlers, McGrath was awesome in it, wasn't he? And I think that when Stuart Broad's on one, when we talk about him getting on a bit of a roll, that's pretty much the line that he bowls. He hits the stumps very rarely when he gets on a roll, and he nicks people off from off stump. And because the ball's swinging, they think that it's a little bit straighter, and then that brings the slips in the gully and the keeper into play. And when he gets his seventhers in very short periods of time, what we've seen 3 or 4 times over the last year or so, 2 years, then that's the sort of line that he's been to.
And Lavers, is good old target practice still the best, as Gareth was talking about? Is that still the thing that you say, right, if we're working on any particular line, we're gonna set a target and go for it?
I'm always pretty wary of saying something's the best or the worst, or something should be done all the time or never. But hitting targets is a really useful thing. Whether you want to have a target that's a channel, in particular a line, or where you want to have a length, or you want to have a line and length combined, that's obviously varying difficulty levels. But we actually just did our first session this morning of working towards some specific targets that we were trying to hit, which is the first time this winter we've had any kind of outcome-related bowling practice with our fast bowlers, and the amazing to see the enthusiasm and the enjoyment when suddenly they're allowed to go and hit something, and suddenly they're not just focused on technical development and physicality. So target practice is a really valuable thing. As much as I would say it's useful to have a target down, it's also useful to make sure you have that time period where you take the target away before you get into the batsman, because some bowlers can become dependent on having something specific to look at. So within a kind of target practice session, don't always feel that having a big marker on a floor, or as I like to do, a rubber set of stumps upturned, so you're hitting the base of the stumps. That works quite nicely because you get some really good feedback as to whether you hit or not. Just be wary of taking that away for a slight period of time before you then make that transition out to a batter where there isn't anything that they can necessarily see, or there's less they can see, maybe a scuff mark on the pitch or whatever it might be. But be wary of that.
And that's one of the most powerful uses of PitchVision as well, in that you have the mat down and you can have guys batting, and you can still have bowlers working on trying to hit a target, because they can get the feedback by looking at the laptop screen, or not looking at the laptop screen, looking at the reaction to the batsman and seeing what the batsman does when you hit the right area, and you can set, in PitchVision you can set that target area down. So that's useful in that it is target bowling, but it takes away the visual cue, which you were talking about there, Lavers. You don't know, you can't see the cue until you go and have a look at the screen. So you can use PitchVision in that way to have sort of target practice that goes beyond putting a cone down. Absolutely.
The other thing PitchVision does really well, I think, is at times the competition and the competitive nature between batter and bowler is what they thrive on, and it's really, really valuable to a session or a match situation. But sometimes you want to have a bowler bowling against the batter, but not necessarily competing against him. You still want to have him focusing on his own movements and his own skills, and if he's going to get some feedback from a system such as PitchVision, then he is competing against himself, and the outcome is what he sees when he goes back, more so than just what happens when the batsman either hits it or doesn't hit it. We've all been there where we've hit a good length, we've maybe got a bit of shape, but we're playing on an indoor surface and we've gone through the covers for four just because it's flat. Whereas if the outcome
or worse
is
over mid wicket,
more likely over mid wicket probably. Yeah. But if the outcome is more based on what we've done and how well we've achieved what we're setting out to, which is actually hit a length, the success or failure of the batsman isn't that important to us, and whether or not we've hit the line or length, which PitchVision will obviously indicate to us, is more relevant. So not that we always want to take that competition away, because that competition is obviously vital and not only a really important part of the training, but a really enjoyable part of the training and the match situations. But yeah, great to have the option with PitchVision where you can take it away and put your focus back on yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, and we reviewed that as well. We looked at the ways that bowlers took wickets when they bowled in nets to batsmen, and about 25% of the time, a not very good ball out of all the wickets, 25% of them were got with what you would say is not a good ball. Overpitched, underpitched, down the leg side. Someone strangled it, and we said, oh well, the keeper would have caught that. It's so. It says to a bowler as well that, although you are striving to try and hit every ball in the same place, it's you've got a little bit of leeway. A bad ball can get a wicket as well. So and that goes back to just tracking what you're doing. And if you're tracking what you're doing, whether it's using PitchVision or hand notation or whatever, then that's going to help you in the long run. And you can learn what works for you. And if fourth stump is working for you, then
I think it's important to know when to adapt, though, isn't it? And that's one of the reasons why we're out in somewhere like India, because we've played on two pitches that have carried through my team so far, and also our under-18s have played on some pitches that we're going to play on later in the week. And the two pitches we played on that carried, that fourth line stump has actually been really useful to us. But we've got a practice day tomorrow, and we're looking if the pitches play exactly the same as they did for our under-18s, where they're that lower type of pitch, where actually the inside of off stump is going to be the line to bowl, because it's going to be more of a bowled and LBW wicket. You're looking to probably bowl more to split fields, 5-4 offsides for seamers, and instead of bowling 6-3s from that four stump line. So we have to be able to adapt and know when to adapt. And I envisage that we'll be bowling a much straighter line than we have done in these first two games, just purely because of conditions.
Next question is from Adnan, and Adnan says, I hope you're doing well. I am a talented but unlucky leg spinner batsman in the UAE. I want to know, is it possible, being an Asian club cricketer, to play for any professional cricket team in England, as it's my dream? A little variation on how do I become a pro here. So how can we help someone who's playing overseas and wants to break through into the pro game in the UK?
Well, my personal bit of advice, and then I'll hand over to Sam, would be, it sounds like you're talented, that's fantastic. Leg spinners, we love leg spinners. It's that unlucky bit that I think you can do the first bit of work on, and you can buy yourself one of these little lamp things and then get a rag and then rub it real hard, lots of spit and polish, a bit of elbow grease. And then if you really, if you do it well enough, then this little genie bloke pops out, and then you can ask him for a bit more luck with your bowling, and that could probably start the process. So good luck with that one. They're readily available. January sales are coming up, so I'll hand over the Lavers.
Okay, well,
good point. I was going to say, I wasn't going to say exactly the same thing, but I was going to go down with some similar lines. That look, I think when someone says something like that, says they're unlucky, that it's kind of the early signs, or it's a sign of externalising the result or the performance, and saying that it's something that was beyond your control or beyond the team's control, and ultimately the majority of what we do is within our control. So luck isn't something we like to refer to a lot. It will come up now and then. So there might be areas that we are unlucky in performances or in training sessions or whatever, but invariably luck is something that is overused throughout the world in terms of sport and cricket and everything. So we'll probably try and stay away from that. when you say you're unlucky, I'd like to think more about what do you mean? What was unlucky about what happened? And is it something that actually was within your control? And if it is within your control, then how can you go about improving? And that's where I put my focus is, yes, think long term. Have in the back of your head, you want to do this thing, you want to play professional cricket, whether it be in England or anywhere else in the world, but professional cricket is what you want to do. So really just keep your focus on your own development. Don't get too caught up in the long-term target, even though you're aware of it. Focus on your development. Think about what you need to be better. Okay, you're not going to change your luck if you think it's good luck or bad luck that's having an impact on your performances, but you will be able to change your performances. You will be able to improve your technique. You will be able to improve your physicality. You will be able to improve your plans and your tactical approach to the game. So just by writing out a list of the things that you think you're good at and the things that you're maybe not so good at would be a good starting point. Not that I'm saying you should go and just target all the things where you're not so strong, because we want to turn some of those things that you're good at into one of Gara's phrases is turning me into a super strength, and that's something you want to do as well. But rather than just putting everything back down to bad luck, make a little list there of the things that maybe you're not quite so good at, and see if they correlate a little bit with the things or the times when you think you're a little bit unlucky. Because I would imagine that not always, but the majority of times you think you're unlucky, there's probably something you could have done to have a little bit more control over the situation, a little bit more of an impact on what you were doing.
On a more serious note for myself, and in the event that you can't find that lamp, the other way to do it is obviously to be really good. You've obviously got talent, which is great, and then have a look at the qualification criteria for playing, because professional cricket is really county cricket in England, and the ECB have fairly recently, in the last few years, tightened their qualification criteria on players that were born or come from other countries. So it's worth checking that criteria and seeing if anything that you've got within passport, within relations, within where you were born fulfills any of those criteria, and if not, then working out how long it will take you to play club cricket in England and then stay over for the winters. It's a massive commitment, and so you're not going to go overseas and play cricket, that you're going to stay over for the winter, so you accrue enough time in the country to become a resident. So the criteria is fairly complex. It's something that I look at quite regularly, but even though I look at it quite regularly to assist players with their own personal circumstances, I always say the best thing to do is to have a look at that criteria, see what your personal circumstances line up against that criteria, and see whether it's feasible. Now, in most cases it's not feasible because it's a tight criteria to get in, and one of the reasons why they tightened it up was because, you know, in sort of 2009, 2010 year, the number of coal pack players, so players have come from Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, and people that have got trade links with the UK increased so much that actually the young talent wasn't getting the opportunity to play county cricket in first class cricket, and as a result of that it was damaging some of the pathways for young cricketers to go through. There was a lot of criticism about the number of South African players in particular, or South African born players in particular, that were playing cricket for England at the time. So it's something that England looked at to tighten up in order to preserve their pathway and to give people who are born in the country a more tangible route to go up the ladder and eventually play for England. Now obviously people still get to play for England that weren't necessarily born in the country, Gary Ballance being one of those such guys who's played for England over the last couple of years, but they have to fulfil this criteria. So if you go onto a website, the ECB website, if you go to their rules and regulations page, then you will find that criteria and see how your circumstances fit against that of the ECB.
Yeah, and even if you do have a chance, it's still a mammoth task to make that commitment and to move to another country and to often take risks with your entire life, really. So it's not something to be sniffed at, and you need to be as sure as you can that it's the thing that is going to give you a good chance of succeeding. So even if you are in that category of people who can do it, the dream is one thing, but the realities of the dream, weigh up the realities of the dream before you commit to something which may or may not be right for you in the long run. So but in the meantime, keep going, keep playing, build up your luck, get your luck going, and let us know how you get on. And that is the end of the show for another week. We are just going to do one more thing before we leave, which is to decide on the winner of this week's competition. Of course, that's the online coaching course from PitchVision Academy at pitchvision.com. Goes to either Yuvraz, who was asking about the fourth stump, or Adnan, who was asking about his chances of making it as a pro in England. Which one did you prefer this week, Gareth?
I'm going to go with Yuvraz's, although I think it's really valuable, bearing in mind the number of emails and messages and tweets that we get around the subject of playing professional cricket in England from players and subcons. I think that's a really relevant question, so well done on that one. But I'm going to go for the fourth stump line question this week.
Yeah, we're always nice to, because we use so much terminology, don't we? It's always nice to sort of, if someone says, actually, what does that really mean? Because you can, sometimes things can get lost in translation, can't they? And you suddenly you're talking about something that both people think they know what it is, and then it turns out it's something different. so you need to
bit of jargon busting.
Yeah, exactly. Bust a few jargons. Speaking of busting jargons, if someone has some jargon that they want busted, how do they get in touch with the show, Gareth, to have their question answered?
Well, they can give us a call on 0203 239 7543 or drop us an email on coach@pitchvision.com.
That's correct. And there's also various social media ways of getting in touch with us. You can find us through the PitchVision social media pages, of course, at pitchvision.com, or you can go to Facebook, facebook.com/PitchVision Academy, or Twitter at PitchVisionAcad. You can also listen to this show every week if you want to do that. It's free to subscribe. Just do a search in your favourite podcast app for PitchVision Academy, and you'll find us in there. Hit subscribe. And if you want to head over to pitchvision.com/academy, you'll find all the show notes. You can stream the show, download the show from there, from our website, and get all the updates and all the old shows going right back to the beginning. And that's all for this week. We hope you listen next week, but until then, have a good week. Cheers, Gareth. Cheers, Lavers.
Cheers, fellas.
Thanks, guys.